What is up, and welcome back to my desk here. It has been a while. The last time I made a video here, this was still a hockey team. RIP, pouring out for the homies. Today we are here to talk about this camera, the Voigtlander Bessa L. It is a camera, believe it or not. This line of cameras was initially released in 1999 and ran until 2003, and it's one of the more interesting, unique systems out there. This is about as cheap of a Voigtlander Bessa camera as you can get, and there is a notable reason as to why that is. You might notice it, or the lack thereof, and that is, of course, there's no viewfinder at all. Just none. No viewfinder. Don't need it. Not necessary. The Bessa L is basically the Cosina shutter system that we've talked about in past videos, housed in this body with an M39 lens mount, which means it takes old Leica screw mounts, as well as these Soviet era lenses, like this Fed lens, I don't know, but it's terrible. And of course, the Voigtlander lenses that came out at this time. There were two in particular that this was kind of supposed to be paired with. That is the 12mm and the 15mm. Basically, the idea behind the system is wide angle, because obviously you can't really get focus. So the wider the angle, the easier that really is. There's a cold shoe here, which you could attach a external viewfinder to assist in the kind of framing of shots. And I believe those were kind of tailored to, again, wider angle lenses. This, of course, is a 52mm lens, so the pictures that came out were interesting to say the least. In other news, it does have a ISO setting here, which you can easily adjust just by rotating it around, and it has a functional metering system right there. So basically, these two arrows show what you need to have the exposure lined up at, and then that green dot means it's on exposure. You have your shutter speed controls here, very similar to the Cosina shutter systems. You have a top shutter speed of 1/2000th all the way down to 1 second, flash sync speed of 1/125th of a second, and a flash sync port right there. A couple other features. There's kind of an off switch, I guess. Really, it's just this tab that sits right there. If you push the advanced lever in, it doesn't allow you to press down on the shutter button. The shutter button, of course, initiates the meter control, so by pressing that in, you're good to go. Got your frame counter right there, a self timer system here, and you have battery compartment, two LR44 batteries. Pop open the back here. Very simple design, nothing really crazy going on here. You can tell that this is definitely a system where very little effort was put in, which on one hand is like, I don't know, there's something about that. It kind of lacks any kind of flair, any kind of soul, any kind of drama. It is just like, what's the least amount of a camera needed in order to make a camera? This is it. There's a little bit of a bevel here for your thumb, which is about as much ergonomic concern as was needed, and the rest of this is fairly minimal. That being said, I still think it's a great camera. It has a number of features, such as the shutter blades in here are actually doubled up to prevent sun from magnifying through the lens, burning a hole in the shutter, and it also serves as the catching point for the meter, I believe. There's something about that, I'm not too sure. There is still some signs of care and effort put into the production of this camera that I think make it a worthwhile system. On top of that, is incredibly lightweight, 340 grams, if you can tell. And to compare that to something like a K1000, 609 grams. Obviously there's a prism in here and stuff like that. Canonet, QL, something or another. 600, wow, that's actually pretty light. And to be fair, we'll put a lens on it just to kind of give the apt comparison. 470. 630. 470. All told, you are getting a significantly lighter system here. Obviously, there are many limitations, i.e. difficulties with framing, sequestered to wider angle lenses if you want to get like accurate shots, accurate focus. But I still think that there's some merit to the system. I think it's weird enough that it kind of works, and I think that it can be kind of a fun piece to have in your collection. They're really not that expensive. They're floating around the $170 to $200 range. You have these kind of composite pieces on the top and the bottom, It's a very low quality build, but again, if you're not spending like boku dollars on it, it doesn't really matter as much. And on top of that, if you want to have a platform in which to use your M39 lenses, then this is pretty much the most affordable way to get into it. I have shot with this camera. My experience was it was fine. It didn't really provide any like general insight into like how I feel about photography. It was kind of an interesting experience because the whole component of looking down the viewfinder is mitigated completely. So there's something to be said about that. Kind of changes my perspective on a lot of things. The few things I really did like was the metering system. Obviously this is a little bit easier because as you are closing the blades down here, they actually just close down. So that way it's always a very accurate reading because it's detecting exactly how much light is coming in as opposed to predicting depending on aperture resistance or anything like that. So there's a few features like that that I really like. Obviously it's fully mechanical outside of the meter, so there's a component of reliability in there. Overall, there's very few issues I think with the Cosina shutter model. It's also a pretty late stage camera. This is one of the few cameras I think I own actually that's younger than I am. So that's pretty impressive. They are plentiful, they are affordable, and if you want to get into the Bessa L system, if you want to get into the M39, there are very few as affordable options as this. So it might be worth looking into, probably not. It's a very, very specific use case. It's a very interesting camera, and just want to talk about it. I also wanted to quickly use this as a opportunity to tease up an upcoming video where I am featured using this camera, and a good buddy of mine is shooting his Leica M6. Should be a good fun video. It'll be coming out on the second channel in a few days here, so I'll have the link attached to this video for you to check out in the meantime when it comes out. Until then though, thank you very much for watching. If you liked the video, if you did, like it, subscribe to the channel, and I'll catch you on the next one.